Good evening, ladies and dreams. This is your boy Crispy Daniels. Welcome back to another episode of ShowNTalk. So today we're going to be talking about Beyond Belief, Back to Fiction, episode 12, season 2. This particular episode right here deals with evil. I mean, straight evil. Every single episode, whether it was the protagonist or some kind of ghost or spirit or whatever hunting the protagonist, had something to do with evil in this episode in all 5 stories. So this was a great one. I give this one already before we get started. I will give it an 8.5 out of 10. It was pretty good. Pretty good. But as always, without further ado, let's get into the first story. The story is called Merry-Go-Round. So this story for me brings back a lot of nostalgia because I remember as a kid, I don't know if y'all remember, but remember in Walmart where outside where they used to have the carts, where they have the carts now, they used to have like the little horses and all that, them little mechanical horses that you can ride for like a quarter or 50 cents or whatever. I don't know, man. Looking back at it now, it was very, I don't know, I get it was kind of stupid, but I guess it's because I'm an adult, but it was something that was nostalgic. Now, this episode right here deals with this merry-go-round that this woman, this woman's father had, as she was growing up. But the woman felt like, her father took it apart. Well, she knew her dad took it apart because, the ride, it was, I guess, killing or injuring a lot of people. It sped up like really fast, and one incident, and then it was knocking people off or sending people flying off the rides. You know what I'm saying? So he took it apart and put it in some warehouse. And years later, her husband, he was very, you know, I guess he really wanted to bring it out and put it back together and show the media and everybody in the surrounding area that, there was no curse. Because right before the ride had opened, it was this gentleman that showed up at their house, well, at that location, and he was trying to warn the husband and wife to not, put the merry-go-round back together. Like they should have just kept it where it was because he 100% believed in the curse. So the husband was trying to prove everybody wrong because not just the old man, but everybody, again, in the surrounding areas did not want to fuck with that ride. Excuse my language, guys. But they did not want to mess with that ride because everybody swore up and down it was cursed. So what the husband decided to do, which I thought it was dumb, you know what I'm saying? I mean, getting on the ride for 12 hours or something like that, that's cool. But 4 days, nah, I'm sorry. That's a little excessive. I think 12 hours would have sufficed. You know what I'm saying? But so he decides to hop on the ride. And so, you know, next thing you know, he's going around, round and round. I think it was like the second, turn or whatever, that he felt something. He felt like the horse or something had bit him, the mechanical horse or whatever. So his wife thought he was just playing games because he was a practical jokester like the whole time. But he was being serious. So, you know, it was like that last time, like when he went around for that last time and came back around, he was unconscious. But come to find out, he was actually dead. So the old man had, I guess, felt vindicated. And so he had left. And next thing we know, it wasn't the ride that killed him, the ride itself. It was actually a snake in the horse's head. So when her father had put the merry-go-round in the shed years before, it was a snake that crawled right up that horse's head. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what bit the dude and killed him. So I guess the thing about the curse is anytime somebody gets on the merry-go-round, something bad happens to them. You know what I'm saying? Whether the ride speeds up, knocking people off, or the snake incident. You know what I'm saying? So that could make sense. But for me, I give this story a 7 out of 10. You know, it was all right. It was a good one for a starter. You know what I'm saying? But let's move on to the next one. Now this one here is called Red Eyed Creature. Thought it was pretty boring. I can't even front, but it's about this family who had just moved into this house, like this big ass house, right? And they had their nanny with them. And so this was gonna be pretty short because I'm just gonna explain it quickly. So one night, you know, while everybody's sleeping, the little kid decides to get up to go in the kitchen to get something to eat. And when he looks, like he hears some kind of noise when he opens up the refrigerator and he turns around and sees like these two red eyes and like this transparent face. And so the kid, you know, starts screaming and runs away. And now the way this kid looked that next day or that next night, he needed therapy. Like whoever this actor was that played this kid, he did a pretty good job. I can't even front. But, you know, the father and like all nobody believed the kid, you know what I'm saying? So what happened was the next night, the mother had got up and did something in the kitchen and she heard the same exact noise. So when she turned around, she also seen the two red eyes and the transparent face. And she did the same thing. Started screaming and ran out the kitchen. And then that's when the mother, the wife and husband and the nanny, you know, they was discussing on, you know, discussing what they were going to do next because she didn't want to live there anymore due to that incident. The husband, he was skeptical, and so was the nanny. And so, the husband, you know, he agreed to call, I guess, the realtor about the previous owner because what happened was the previous owner of the house they were in had, you know, killed himself. You know what I'm saying? So I guess that's the explanation. So, but what happened was, you know, near the end of the story, the little kid, you know, he was in bed talking to the nanny, and the nanny was telling him that, you know, everything was going to be all right and don't worry about it. You know, it might have just been something, you know, it was in his head. I'm not sure, but you know, it wasn't no change in that little kid's mind. So after the nanny tucked the kid in and walked out the room, her eyes started glowing red. And that's what happened at the very end of the story. So for me, it was kind of ambiguous. Was it the nanny herself that was the red eye creature, or was she being possessed? That part right there, I never figured it out, you know, to this day. And I remember this story really well. But maybe one day we'll figure it out. We'll find out. Who knows? So the next story, used car salesman. Now, I gotta say, the guy that played the scumbag car salesman in the story, he did a pretty damn good job, yo. I swear. Like he played this role so well, you would think he was a prick in real life. You know what I mean? But what happened with this story was the guy in the beginning, the black dude. Now, the black dude in this story, you know, he played in a few things. I know he was in South Central, if y'all seen that movie. You know what I mean? He played Ray Ray. If y'all seen that movie, you know who I'm talking about. But he played the honest car salesman in this story. So what happened was it was this old woman, you know, looking for a new car. And she saw something that caught her eye, but the you know, the black dude, he told her that he can make a lot of money selling her that car, but it wouldn't feel right because it had so many miles on it. And so, you know, I guess the manager or whatever. No, it wasn't the manager. It was the scumbag car salesman that called him over the intercom. The boss needed to see him. So he had to step away for a minute. And the next thing you know, the little scumbag, you know, the little weasel comes out and he sells the woman the car with the mileage on it anyway. And so she pulls out of the lot. He makes his money. And then old boy, you know, the black dude, who's ready to fight because that was like, you know, he was always doing that, stealing their customers. him, and it was like two other salesmen. And then the dude, you know what I'm saying, the scumbag, he didn't care. Like he didn't care one bit. So the next day, it was this I guess it was like this older rock and roll band or whatever, you know what I'm saying, coming out of retirement or they were still playing. So they needed a vehicle to get to their show. But the vehicle he wanted, it needed new brakes. You know what I'm saying? So the scumbag salesman was telling him that it was a mechanic need to come out there and take a look at it before he was able to sell it to him. But the dude couldn't wait. So he sold it to him right then and there anyway. And the guy pulled off and he made his bone, he made his little change off of that. Now, the one thing I can say about this guy, he was ruthless, like really ruthless when it came to, selling these messed up vehicles to people. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he was an asshole at the same time, but still. Um, so the next day, the other salesman, the honest guys come in and he dropped a newspaper in front of him and told him to read the article. Come to find out that the guy in the band, he was killed in the crash because the brakes went out on him. And so the dude was, scumbag salesman was trying to tell them that, he was trying to get somebody to come out and look at it, but the guy couldn't wait. You know what I'm saying? So, they still didn't care for him anyway after everything else he did. So they walked away. You know what I'm saying? And later on that night, the scumbag salesman was working late. He had to close. And right before he was about to leave, all these cars pulled into the parking lot. And it was every single car in the van that was sold to these people. And so they pretty much got their revenge beyond the grave. They ran his ass over, and that was the end of that. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I give this story a straight 10 because he got what was coming to him straight up. But anyway, let's move on to our next one. Now, this one, surveillance camera. That's the name of it. I was waiting on this one because this was actually one of my favorite stories in the entire series, right? So it's about this foreigner guy. He owns this convenience store, and he was trying to save up enough money to bring the rest of his family to the U.S. And while he was in the store one night, or that morning, he was talking to one of the customers, and she was telling him about the previous store owner, like how evil he was, and he was just basically a jerk, right? And so later on that night, this older gentleman came into the store and he pretty much robbed the dude. So he told the dude to hand over all his money, like the money that was in the silver box that was underneath the counter. And the guy was trying to figure out, and I was trying to figure out, how do you know about that silver box? And so the store owner, he eventually relented and gave him the box. It had $8,000 in it, the money that he was going to bring his family to America with. So the old dude took the box and he walked out of the store. And the guy, he was on the floor for a minute. So he finally got up and, you could tell he was traumatized. But that's not even the end of it. It was two other dudes that came in a while later and robbed him again. And so this time he didn't have nothing to give him. They didn't shoot him, they ain't touch him, nothing. They just, left the store. And so I believe it was the next day or later, even later that night, he called the cops. So they came out. And one of the cops was looking around underneath the counter to see what the guy that the store owner was describing took. And so next thing you know, as he was explaining what happened to one of the cops, you know what I'm saying, the other one pulled the silver box from under the counter. And the store owner was trying to figure out how, it got back under there. And so, he was relieved he got his money and the cops had left. So the next day, one of the cops showed back up with a videotape with the the guy that he described, the first one. So what happened was he had showed, because the previous store owner, he had showed the cop had showed the store owner, the new store owner, the surveillance footage of what happened to the previous store owner, because they locked up the two dudes that tried to rob him, that second robbery. So the store owner is looking at the tape, and then the guy who was getting robbed turned around, and it was the same exact dude who robbed him the first time. You know what I'm saying? So the cop told him that was the previous store owner. And so the guy was shocked, like, that's the dude that took my box. But we come to find out, it was his spirit that basically kept him from getting his box taken by the two guys that came in there later. You know what I'm saying? That was basically the premise. I give the story a 10 out of 10, yo. I loved it. Can't even front. All right, so moving on to our last story, Graffiti. Now, this one takes place back in the day. I believe it was the year 1941, right before Pearl Harbor, right? So it was about this principal, you know, when he got the second he got to school, right? He had found out somebody had defaced school property. And the one person that, he accused of doing it is this one guy that was going around just bullying students. Johnny Evans, I guess that was his name in the story. So he pulls old boy, the kid, into his office, and he was trying to get him expelled because he did not like the kid for nothing. And the kid looked, yeah, he had a shit-eating grin on his face, yo. The kid looked straight evil. You know what I mean? And everything that the principal tried to say to him, he just couldn't get the kid to break. So he decided to go into his records and see what he could find to get him expelled. But when he opened up the book, like all the pages, in the book, and what happened earlier that morning when he got there, it said, "Remember Pearl Harbor," right? In both books, you know what I'm saying? Everything was being defaced. So I guess it was the janitor that walked into his office and told the principal to look outside his window. In his car, the principal's car had the same thing written on it. You know what I'm saying? Remember Pearl Harbor. So he decided to blame the kid again, even though the kid was in the office with him the whole time. And then the kid, he kind of had a point. He said, how was I going to deface your car when I was in here with you the entire time? And so he had to let the kid go. So basically, like I said, it took place right before Pearl Harbor got bombed by the Japanese. You know what I'm saying? So I thought it was a pretty interesting story. I remember this one too. But I give this one, I give it about a 9. It was pretty good. Not as good as the previous story, but it was pretty good. But that's pretty much it for this one. Like I said, if you caught it, every single story in this episode had something to do with evil. You know what I'm saying? Whether it was the snake in the merry-go-round, the curse itself, the red-eyed creature, it turns out it might have been protecting the family, but still. And then you had the used car salesman, which was the protagonist, aka the asshole. He was evil for selling these innocent people these bad vehicles. You know what I'm saying? And then the surveillance camera, where you had the evil dude who died, but at the same time saved the innocent man's money. You know what I'm saying? From two other robbers. Or you had the bully, the school bully in this one, who the story was kind of ambiguous because nobody knows how, Remember Pearl Harbor was written everywhere. And then it was written all over the school. So right before the bombing, that was out there. So we don't know how that happened. So yeah, every story in this deals with evil. But this was a classic episode for me. And I definitely gotta say, this will be another good starter for you guys who's never seen this show. So if you've never seen it, you can start from this episode right here. Episode 12, season 2. Make sure you check it out. And if you're watching this on YouTube, give me a like, comment, and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate that. I really will. I appreciate all my subscribers already. Y'all don't know how much this means to me. You know what I'm saying? So let me get that that subscription, and then I'll talk to y'all later. All right. Peace.
The feeling is mutual. Come in, take a seat, share your thoughts with each, and preach it when you speak, so we can share kinetic energy throughout the brainwave. Keep us balanced out and all on the same stage.